thank you.
Hang on, 2 seconds. If on that basis, then is it? On that basis, then Rosemary, are you okay to nominate Ian to be chair? I think.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the local pension board meeting. The first item on the agenda is the election of chair for the 2023-24 municipal year. Could I have nominations, please? And can I have a seconder? Seconder for Ian.
Yes, I'm happy to second that.
Okay, thank you. And any other nominations? No. All in favour? Okay, thank you. Ian Guy is elected chair. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you all very much for your faith in electing me, and I'm happy to accept the nomination. Welcome to this meeting, and please bear with me throughout the meeting, as you'll understand, I wasn't expecting to be chairing today. Item 2 on the agenda then are nominations for the post of vice chair. Can I have any nominations, please? Unless there are any nominations, in his absence, could I nominate David White to continue as vice chair? He's currently in the post, and in his absence, I'm making the assumption that he'd be prepared to continue. Would anybody like to second David continuing as vice chair?
On the assumption that he does wish to continue, yeah, and I'd be happy to second that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Noyle. Perhaps we could include that proviso in the minutes then, and he can always let us know in due course. Any other nominations? I can't see any. So votes for David White. I'd be voting in favour. If I could see any other indications. Anybody?
Yeah, it's all in favour, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm assuming from that there's nobody voting against and no abstentions. Thank you very much. So, apologies for absence.
No apologies at this stage, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, is anybody carrying apologies for any other member? I can't see any indications. I'm using a single screen here and flipping between the agenda and the meeting. So rather than perhaps indicating, if you could call out, if you give me an indication if you want to speak. Disclosures of personal and prejudicial interests. I know you've sent Jeremy, our clerk has sent the form out. Shall we go round in order, Jeremy?
Yeah, yeah, I'll declare the chair, member of the local government pension fund.
Okay, as you've got a record, and we'll all be in a different order, do you want to call us in?
Yeah, if we do the room first, Rosemary.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Member of the local pension fund.
Personal interest, member of the local pension fund.
Okay, and on to the online, Councillor Noyle.
Yes, the same. I'm a member of the local pension fund.
Okay, and Ian.
Yes, I'm also a member of the fund, so it's the agenda as a whole.
And Steph.
Yes, member of the fund, agenda of the whole.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Is that everyone covered there, Jeremy?
Yes, as everybody can who can declare in the meeting. Thank you.
Good, and very pleasing to see that we're all we all have something in the game that we're all members of the fund. Moving on then, the minutes of the last meeting, and they appear on page 3 of 160 of the agenda pack. Perhaps if we go through them for accuracy, page 1 of the minutes themselves, please call out if you have any amendments. Page 2 of the minutes themselves. And page 3 of the minutes themselves. And I'm just back on the main screen now. I didn't hear anybody indicating there, so could we take those minutes as being approved for accuracy? I'm seeing nobody voting against. Anybody abstaining? So unless there's any indication of the contrary, I'm taking those as approved unanimously.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, and does anybody have any matters arising from the minutes? Again, I'm not seeing any indications.
Chairman, if I may.
Certainly.
Not directly arising from the minutes, Chairman, but some good news to share, which I shared with the Pension Fund Committee at its last meeting, that the fund has been shortlisted for Pension Fund of the Year with assets over £2.5 billion. We just about scrape into that larger category, as you're aware. The fund is just shy of £3 billion in size. So very much playing with the big boys in that regard, in that categorization. Very pleased to be shortlisted for that award again, and that's probably off the back of another very strong financial performance, investment performance in the last 12 months, but also reflecting the top of the league performance in terms of investment performance in the 3-year period ending 31st of March 2023, in which Swansea is ranked number 1 out of all the LGPS funds for that 3-year period. So the awards are scheduled to be held the second week of September, and the chair of the Pension Fund Committee will be represented, if we're fortunate enough to pick up that award on that evening. Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you, Jeff. That's excellent news on 2 counts, I think. 1, the nomination for the award, and 2, the underlying investment performance as well. So I think perhaps Councillor Noyle and Rosemary, if you're happy, perhaps we could record in the minutes our congratulations to the staff of the fund who've caused that to happen.
Absolutely, a big yes for me from that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Jeff, perhaps as well as recording in the minutes, perhaps you could pass on our congratulations to all those involved.
Happy to do so, Chairman.
I'm grateful. And yes, presumably it will the results will be circulated if favourable to everyone involved.
Definitely, Chairman. We'll be shouting it from the rooftops if we do.
I'm sure we'll hear it without needing to wait for the email.
And rightly so, Jeff.
Yes, indeed. Unless there's anything else arising from the minutes, and I can't hear anything. We have the audit plan for the annual audit. Jeff, are you going to speak to this item?
Yes, Chairman. I did invite Audit Wales the opportunity to come and present its local pension board, but they were happy to delegate that duty to myself. Local pension board members, are used to receiving an audit plan prior to the commencement of Audit Wales's annual audit of the financial statements of the local government pension scheme in Swansea. However, this is an outline audit plan, which is a precursor to the actual audit plan, which they shall present to Pension Fund Committee and Local Pension Board at their next meeting in September. It's a slightly different approach this year, in that they're giving us a curtain raiser to the curtain raiser, almost, an audit plan to the audit plan. So this is their outline audit plan, and as you can see on their audit timeline on page 7 of their report, you can see their outline audit plan to be work undertaken in March 2023, report finalised April 2023, and it was presented then to committee, as I say, earlier this month, and Local Pension Board are receiving it today. And then their detailed audit plan is due to be finalised as we speak, with a view to presenting that audit plan, detailed audit plan, to committee and Local Pension Board later in the year, in early autumn. In terms of the audit cycle, obviously, Karen Cobb, our investment and accounting manager, is in the throes of finalising the annual report and statement of accounts for this financial year, ready to be handed over to the auditors to commence their audit work. So with the following wind all being told, those financial statements should be fully audited and ready to be reported to committee and Local Pension Board at their November meetings later in the year. That's well within the statutory deadline of December 2023. So still on course to meet those deadlines. There are, and Audit Wales have been candid about their resourcing struggles and issues, which has partly impacted on some of these timelines here, but also on some regulatory changes and the implementation, as you can see in Appendix 1, which is on page 12 of your pack and page 9 of the actual report, is the introduction of ISA 315. You're used to receiving a report under the auspices of ISA 260. However, the audit regulations surrounding the audit of pension funds has changed, and the ISA in play for this financial year is ISA 315. And as you can see in that appendix, the impact of those changes and the key changes are identified in the first column, and the impact in the second column. Don't see it having a material impact on the way the audit is discharged. They were very much, and it's the second point really, and they're definitely going to leverage and use more audit techniques in relation to the IT infrastructure and our IT systems that we use. So we may have more questions and inquiries relating to those systems of control around our IT systems and how we manage those processes and security surrounding that. But apart from that, we Karen and Claire, our pensions admin manager, wait with bated breath on how operationally the new audit regime will be implemented. But the key areas that they look at in our dealings with members, dealing with how we safeguard the financial assets and the investment assets, they'll largely remain unchanged, I suspect, because obviously they represent the main risks in the business operations of the pension scheme. So largely those areas will always be looked at in detail and with a fine tooth comb. However, you know, the slight nuances around the IT coverage and exercising different aspects of risk assessment and risk control are reflective of the new ISO 315. Happy to take any questions, Chairman.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions? I can't see any indications. Jeff, apart from the burden on Audit Wales, does the new ISO requirement impose a greater burden on our fund staff, or is it just changing the timing of that burden?
You know, Chairman, you know, you get used to being an audited body. You know, they ask the same question. They ask, you know, for the same regular pieces of information every year, and items of verification and documentation. You know, it becomes almost routine in that way. However, this change in approach may require us to produce different pieces of evidence to support our processes and give them assurance. So that's the only issue, Chairman, that perhaps the asks of staff may be different, and they may approach it from a different way, but hopefully give them that assurance that they're seeking. So I can't answer equivocally, Chairman, that it won't have additional resource burdens, and I'm sure it will in this first instance, because obviously as auditors are implementing the ISO 315 for the first time, they're finding their way and perhaps maybe a bit overzealous and you know, want and demand more than they actually need in respect of the information they require. But yeah, we're happy to work with them. They've given us good notice. Obviously, this documentation, we've had planning meetings with them prior, and hopefully we can work together to successfully deliver that audit on timetable and within the fee. We're yet to receive the proposed audit fee, Chairman, as well. So sorry, I omitted to reference that. They will present their proposed revised audit fee in respect of their audit at their detailed audit plan in September, and we envisage an increased fee due to the increased workload that they're going to propose as a result of the new ISO 315.
Okay, that's interesting. That you're expecting a higher fee. It's stayed the same for the last couple of years, hasn't it?
It has. Very pleasingly, it has. Obviously, they discharged their duties as the appointed order largely remotely during the last 3 years. I don't think we can say we had face-to-face meetings with any auditors as such, have we, Karen? It was you know, the audit was fully undertaken remotely. I don't know there are any efficiencies or savings gained from that, but no, they were they very understandably kept their fees at previous year's levels. However, I think the forward signalling of ISO 315 would suggest to me, Chairman, that there shall be an increase in audit fees as a result of this new ISO.
Okay, and the final question from me, there seems to be a greater focus on IT and our IT systems, and they're provided by Swansea, aren't they? Swansea Council. Have they been alerted to the fact that they may need a greater involvement from them?
The implementation of the new ISA is not only applicable to pension funds. The auspices of the ISA will be applicable to to Swansea Council's audit regime as a whole, and similarly with, for example, Neath Talbot's audit regime when your statement of accounts get audited as well, though, Chairman. So you know, corporate organisations should be aware on a corporate basis of their requirements and obligations under that. So hopefully that addresses your concerns, Chairman.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. Are there any other questions on this item? I can't see any indications or indeed hear any. It's an information item. So unless anybody has any ideas to the contrary, I'd propose we simply receive it for information. Very well. So moving on to the next item, which is a standing item on our agenda, the breaches report at page 16 of our pack. And Jeff, again, you going to deal with this item?
Thank you, Chairman. As you say, it's a long-standing item, and I was reminded by a pension fund committee member of this fact, and I'd like to share my apologies again to members of the local pension board for the lengthiness of the report, in that it was requested that we have almost an audit history of all breaches since we started reporting these breaches, Chairman, so that local pension board members and pension fund committee members could see and appreciate any trends or amelioration or deterioration of performance, and so that's why, you know, there are copious pages of previous breaches as well, but it has been requested that we edit that and only include the latest breaches for committees and pension boards consideration. So the pertinent breaches that I'd like to bring to your attention since the last time we met are on page 42 of your pack. Sorry, starting on page 41 of your pack and then ending on page 42 of your pack. And as requested previously, the detail of those breaches are then broken down on page 42, and it's the usual types of breaches in respect of late contributions received from employers. Again, the first two you can see there on page 42 are two small community councils, very small number of contributors, and we're talking a week late at most in respect of those. Obviously, you can see at the bottom of that schedule on page 42 a larger amount in respect of a housing association, and that was in respect of 244 contributors. We're pleased to say that they haven't appeared in that breach in this breaches report before, and as you can see, the payment was set up in accordance with their procedures and processes, but for whatever reason the send button was not pressed. As you can see, again, it was late by a matter of days, 4 days late that we received it. It was an unwelcome late receipt of contributions, but you know, we can see that it was a one-off. It was human error in that respect, and we're happy to take it at face value. As I reported to committee as well, Chairman, since the date of this report, you can see we report no GDPR breaches to report on page 41, but I do want to bring to your attention we do have one ongoing GDPR breach that is being investigated. It's been brought to my attention. Some physical snail mail correspondence has been sent to a member's previous address, despite the member telling us of change of address, and obviously that recipient has taken the mail to the member's new address, and that's been brought to attention that It's gone to the wrong address, and she's reported it as a breach that we haven't acted upon her notification to us of change of address. That's been investigated. That's been reported internally to our Information Commissioner representative, our data officer, for him to undertake his internal investigations on how to address the issue.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions on this item? No. Obviously, these breaches, the report itself is backward-looking, Jeff. So the item regarding the mail, that will be reported to us in the outcome of that will be reported in a future meeting.
Correct.
Jeff, one matter which seems to be a new breach is at the bottom of page 41. It's the column headed March 2023 to June 23 administration. 17.7% of lump sums not paid, and the reason there seems to be late provision of figures from employers. I don't think I've seen late provision of pay by employers featuring in these reports before. Can you give us any information about what's going on there?
When a member retires, it's quite a lot of information is required to confirm the payroll position, number of hours worked, whether that person has multiple roles, for example, and we require at that stage confirmation from the employer payroll department of their pensionable pay records. There is that this breach does occur on a timely basis, and as you can see, because there's a full audit history of it, it has been reported previously, Chairman, and it's that data flow issue of putting that request in that the members going, but we can't progress the lump sum payment until we have that accurate pensions payroll figure. And I think in this instance, unfortunately, the employer in question, I think, and don't quote me, was Swansea Council at the moment. As you're aware, or not, Chairman, we're in the process of implementing a new resourcing platform across payroll, GL, procurement, purchasing, etc., across the whole piece. And one of the priorities was to ensure that payroll worked, we could pay our staff, etc., etc. And so pension payroll issues sort of got backlogged. So they didn't take priority at that stage. Hence some delay in providing those figures. So I would suggest I'll check about the detail, but that's why there has been a bit of a spike in this period due to that. Suffice to say, the system has been implemented now, and they're working out their teething issues. So hopefully that backlog of PR forms will start to come down. Funny enough, I did have a meeting with our pensions admin manager, asking me if we needed to escalate it with Swansea Council as an employer, because she is getting concerned about the bug. But we've been given reassurance that now the system has been implemented, the backlog will be addressed.
Okay, that is reassuring. I think as I said at the outset, these are backward-looking, of course, reports. If it does continue to be an issue, it might be useful for us and the committee to have this item broken down into late payments due to members not getting their option forms in on time and employer lateness. Would you be able to give us some sort of indication in days as to how late pension lump sums were delayed, or is that something you wouldn't like to do off the top of your head?
I wouldn't like to do that off the top of my head, although it's material enough to be flagged as a concern by our pensions admin manager to escalate it. Obviously, Swansea Council is the administering authority, and we work alongside our colleagues in payroll, and you know, we're aware of the pressures they're under. So I don't think undue pressure at this time would have any direct benefits at this time. If it does persist, you're quite right, Chairman, to raise it as a concern. But we know the pressures that are brought to bear at this period in time. Hopefully that bottleneck has been released with the implementation of the system. The system went live in April. They're working out the teething problems with the payroll system now. So hopefully those payroll staff can tilt and flex back to that backlog of pensions payroll issues and queries and address those.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So, I mean, it works both ways, doesn't it? You've got knowledge, so you can have reassurance too that you know what's causing it, and if it's implementation of a new system, hopefully it'll work its way through. Any other questions or points to make on this agenda item?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, so is there like a robust system in place for the members of the fund who work for the authorities, you know, in terms of having enough knowledge about how soon to advise that they wish to retire, how much notice, you know, do they have like a pack that they're provided with so that these things are put in place in enough time to make sure that the pensions are arranged in time for retirement?
It varies from employer to employer, to be honest, Rosemary. Our pensions admin team do have roadshows, go out to employers, always offer to provide that service. I can speak from our experience as an employer. Online, members can book themselves. Well, employees can book themselves onto a pre-retirement course whereby it covers their LGPS retirement, what their options are, etc., but also, you know, wider, you know, issues like financial planning, you know, access to benefits that you know, that are afforded to retirees going forward. So I can speak from a Swansea Council as an employer perspective. That's what we afford to our members. They can sign, for example, a member of our team now is due to retire on Friday, and I know for a fact because I had to approve her attendance at that course. She booked herself onto a pre-retirement course about 3 or 4 months ago, and it's at that course that everything about the LGPS, their benefits, what they need to do, what they have to bring in is told to them. But also, as I say, it's a lot broader pre-retirement course, not just about this, because that would take about 5 minutes basically.
Yes,
but it's about, you know, planning, you know, what to do with your lump sum, but you know, options available to you, other services, accessing other services like citizens advice, financial planning services, etc. I must admit, I haven't sat through one for a while now, so hand on heart, I couldn't tell you the full content of it, but I'm told by people who have attended them that they are very good and provide you know, prospective retirees the information they require.
Again, that's thank you, Rosemary. That was a pertinent point. Jeff, is it fair to say that for those members who've been affected by late payment, that they'll get a slight increase in their lump sum through interest payment?
Not right. So in the last 10 years, I could have safely said that it wouldn't have had an impact at all with base rates. But as you're aware now, with increasing interest rates, it is starting to bite and become material. I suspect, and as you probably appreciate, some of the LGPS lump sums can be material sums. I think it has to breach quite a lengthy period before we're liable to pay any penalty in that regard. It has to be materially late, even though it breaches the reporting breach. And although it's we're reporting a breach in respect of that the TPR required timescales, it's not embarrassingly late. We're not talking we're paying them 6 months late, or in that regard, I would say most definitely they should be recompensed for the late payment. It's a matter of days that we're talking in this instance, because when in fairness to our colleagues in pensions payroll, they are aware of the urgency and they turn it around quickly if it is required. But that is business as usual. We're having to chase them, and then they're addressing it, and then we're putting it right. So it's a question of days, not weeks. People aren't waiting weeks and weeks and weeks for this payment.
Thank you, Jeff. That deals with my question. Anything else before we leave this item? I can't see anything. And again, it's an information item for us. So unless anybody proposes the contrary, I suggest we receive it for information. Next item is item 7B, the WPP business plan. And again, I'm assuming this is you, Jeff.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Again, local pension board members are used to receiving the Wales Pension Partnership business plan. Like ourselves, the Swansea Pension Fund, they produce a business plan. You'd have seen our business plan at the previous meeting for the forthcoming 12 months. You can see WPP have a slightly longer time frame in their business planning, and this business plan spans 2023 to 2026. The main elements of it, as I say, it provides a useful framework, aid memoir for work planning and business planning for that period. And as you can see, it starts on page 54 of your pack, the different areas of work that the work plan covers, which includes governance, sub-fund development, operator services, investments reporting, communication and training, and resourcing, budgeting and fees. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I'll tease out pertinent items to bring to your attention. And the most important one I would suggest, and it's referenced later on in the pack, in a later report, is the launch of the Sustainable Equities Sub-Fund. You can see it there on the top of page 55. That has recently launched. This is the equity listed equity sub-fund of WPP, which is a bottom-up sustainable equities fund, the sole purpose of which all the investee companies in there are either supporting or contributing to sustainable development goals, be it about the environment, climate change, improving poverty, labour conditions, etc. All the above. So they have to have some sort of sustainable goal to be included within that equities sub-fund. All 8 funds are participating in the launch of that fund. So it's going to be very well supported from day one. Swansea have committed to £200 million of its global equity sub-fund, which is currently invested in the global opportunities global equity sub-fund. So we're transitioning £200 million from the existing WPP portfolio into this newly launched sustainable equity sub-fund. The investment performance parameters and objectives are the same. Benchmark +2 over a 3-year cycle. So there's no diminution of investment performance by moving into this fund. So we're going to monitor it, see how it performs, see if it develops the way we want, with a view to perhaps increasing that allocation over time as it progresses. But I think of all the global equities funds, that's the only one where all 8 the WPP funds participate. Because at the moment you're either in global growth or global opportunities or the UK or emerging markets or a blend of all the above. That's the only fund which has all 8 participants from day one. So that's an important landmark. Again, at the top of page 55, you can see reference to the launch of the private equity sub-fund, the launch of the private debt and infrastructure sub-funds. Obviously, we reported to committee and board previously the appointment of those managers and allocators in respect to those funds, but it's been quite a tortuous process onboarding those funds. And I want to reference Karen and her team and all the work they've done with our legal advisors in getting that over the line. It's been quite onerous, taken longer than we've expected, all the compliance and governance issues and knowing your client and documentation which is required, which is good. It's comforting to know that it is very well policed and governed investment environment, but it has delayed the actual investment of the money and getting it to work. It's taken longer than we envisaged, and it has been a bit frustrating, but more or less there. And I think that the capital commitments will start soon, not only for ourselves but also the other participating funds within Wales. Halfway down the page there, Chairman, you can see operator services. As you're aware, our operator, WPP's operator Link Services, their contract comes to an end this year. We've extended it by a couple of years, so we're out and ready to launch the renewal of that operator contract, and that's due to be launched in the autumn. A lot of work's been undertaken with our legal advisors, procurement advisors, and Hyman's, the advisory advisors, on how best to shape the operator contract. Obviously, we're 7 years down the line from when we originally launched the operator, and hopefully we've learned a lot since that launch. What we expect of an operator in terms of reporting, in terms of client service, in terms of timeliness of information and reactiveness. So we're a more informed client in that regard, and the tender spec has been shaped accordingly. And obviously the world has moved on in terms of requirements for net zero, sustainable development goals, TCFD reporting, task force with climate related risk reporting. All that capability is that wasn't around 7 years ago. So we have to incorporate all those requirements and what we ask of an operator at this juncture. So as I say, a lot of work being done by the host authority, Carmarthenshire County Council, and practitioners like Karen and other practitioners who sit on the subgroups. So that tender is due to launch now in the autumn, with a view to evaluating the tenders sort of over Christmas time, with a view to reporting to Joint Governance Committee early in the next new year.
Thank you, Jeff. Some good news on a number of fronts there. Questions on this item? I'm not seeing or indeed hearing any indications. Jeff, could I ask you regarding the tendering exercise, from your knowledge, how many players realistically are they going to be in this field?
Chairman, that's a great question. I mean, there were concerns about contraction in the market. So with that concern in mind, they had a market engagement day, they called it, and as advised is allowable under procurement rules by our procurement colleagues. We put a notice out to the marketplace and asked them to come along, just an informal chat, see what they could do. We told them what we were looking for, what we were trying to achieve. And it was a healthy response, a good handful of respondents in the market. But since that market engagement day, two of the participants in the market have actually consolidated. One has taken over the other, and it happens to involve Link. Waystone have taken over Link, and instead of having two players in the market, there'll be one now. Not a concern. We're advised there are still other players in the market that very much want to work with us, want our business, and will actively submit a legitimate tender should we launch the market tender in autumn. You'll see later on in the pack, Chairman, an update on that situation about Link and the takeover of them. But as you pointed out, Chairman, it is pertinent to the tendering exercise, because whereas previously we would have expected two participants, now there will just be one in respect of that organisation there.
Okay, thank you. Unless there's any comments or questions arising out of that. Again, this is an information item for us. So unless I see to the contrary, I propose we accept this for information. Next item on the agenda, 7C, is admission body status at page 71 of our pack. And Jeff, again, I think this is going to be you.
Thank you, Chairman. As the report states, local government pension scheme regulations permit an admin authority to make an admission agreement with a body that is providing or will provide a service or assets in connection with the exercise of a function of a scheme employer as a result of the transfer of the service or assets by means of a contract or other arrangement. What does this mean? For example, if one of the main scheme employers within the scheme, when I say main scheme employers, I mean an employer named in the schedule, the original schedule of the 1972 Act. If one of those main employers transfers a service or to use that term, outsources a service to a third party, the administering authority is allowed to admit that new service provider as an employer into the scheme in order to safeguard the pension rights and of those members and employees who are subsequently transferred to that service provider. City and County Pension Fund, City and County of Swansea Pension Fund already has a large number of such employers within the scheme. You know, you'll be well versed and well used to hearing us reference our employers in the scheme, like Titarian, who are housing providers for formerly Neath Talbot Council, and then transition to the third party Titarian. Celtic Leisure, similarly, with Newport Talbot County Borough Council as a sponsoring scheme employer. It's a provider of their leisure services. So there are a number of such employers within the scheme already. What we've got in front of you today is an application that the Pension Fund Committee has approved, an application from Mrs. Bucket, or as our committee clerk Jeremy Parkhurst likes to say, Mrs. Bouquet. He's from Penclouth and obviously has aspirations.
Steady now.
So they're a cleaning service provider to a school. The school has historically utilised Swansea Council as its cleaning provider. However, schools do have autonomy to choose who their service providers are, and the school in question go on, Karen, you pronounce it for me.
YGG Tydino.
Tydino.
Gasigning.
Yeah. They've use their discretion and their right to decide they want their cleaning services done by someone else, and this someone else is Mrs. Bucket. However, Mrs. Bucket is willing to retain the services of the council employed employee. However, she will now work for Mrs. Bucket instead. So to protect her pension rights, we have to admit Mrs. Bucket into the scheme as a scheme employer. There are safeguards surrounding our admission of Mrs. Bucket as an employer. Those safeguards are that we undertake full due diligence of Mrs. Bucket and require us to enter into an admission body agreement with Mrs. Bucket, whereby there are certain guarantees and risk mitigation measures that they need to agree to before being admitted as scheme employer. As you can see in 3.1, they're already a scheme employer in other LGPS funds, in RCT and Cardiff Council, where similar arrangements of cleaning services have happened previously. But we're obliged to undertake our own due diligence and undertake our own admission agreements with Mrs. Bucket, and the ultimate scheme employer in this instance will be Swansea Council. So Swansea Council will be providing the ultimate sponsoring employer guarantee in this instance. As I say, Pension Fund Committee were happy to approve this admission and to safeguard the pension rights of this employee in question.
Thank you, Chair. Any questions about this item?
Yeah, just one from me. So in terms of the safeguarding, does that include this company's being able to afford in the long term to be within, because I do understand that an assessment has to be made of their financial standing, because I think the contribution might be higher than what the authority would normally pay, because the risk is higher because they're an independent company rather than a local authority.
You're quite right there, Rosemary, about the risks, and that's why it's important that, as you say, the approval was subject to the risk assessment and completion of the admission body status agreement. Yes, in the due diligence, the financial health of Mrs. Bucket will be assessed, but the ultimate safeguard, because obviously the cleaning contract is only for a number of years, is not infinite. So the financial risk to the fund and to the member as such is only for the length of that contract. The ultimate guarantee in this instance is the sponsoring employer guarantee, which is provided by Swansea Council in this instance, because they were the original employer that and outsourced the service. They ultimately provide the guarantee and underwrite the risks of that employer. But in the short term, all the mitigation measures for that individual employer would be reflected in, as you correctly say, the contribution rate payable and the admission body agreement that is required, and or a bond. But in this instance, a bond won't be required because of the willingness of the sponsoring employer to provide that guarantee.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Jeff, have I read the report correctly that there's only one cleaner, only one member of staff involved, one cleaner for the whole school?
Correct.
Right. Well, I'm pleased that you report the committee approved it, because it must have been a dreadfully worrying time for this member of staff, changing employers anyway, moving from the public to the private sector. But at least now she's going to continue to be able to be in the LGPS.
Normally in situations like this, we pensions and the admin authority would have been involved at an earlier stage, you know, at the very inception of and consideration of changing the service provision. We'd have been involved then, and you know, the member would have been consulted on, hopefully. But unfortunately, in this instance, the school in question acted unilaterally, and we were told of this after the event. As you can see, even when Pension Fund Committee met and approved this, it was retrospective in that the change happened in June, and so yeah, as you say, it was very comforting that the Pension Fund Committee approved it for the individual in question. But unfortunately, you know, the school acted in haste in this regard, without getting that comfort for their member of staff ahead of them approving that decision. But luckily, and hopefully, the individual wasn't unduly worried about their pension provision, and hopefully now that issue has been addressed. Chairman, with your indulgence, and it's quite pertinent to what I've previously reported. I have a colleague who just come in that I have to urgently sign some pension payroll checks because of the difficulties we have in the system. We're having to make some manual pension payments. So with your indulgence, could we take a recess for 2?
Yeah, we don't want to delay that, Jeff. Perhaps we'll pause for a comfort break as well for the rest of us and resume in 5 minutes.
Perfect. Thank.
we really wouldn't want to have delayed the issuing of pension checks. I think we come to the end of that agenda item unless anybody has any questions arising out of it. Any further questions? And I'm not seeing any indications. So again, it's an information item, and we'll take it as received for information. Next item, again, is a bit of a perennial as a topic for us, the pensions dashboard. Jeff?
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, this report was asking committee for some additional resource in respect of pension dashboard preparedness. Just to remind local pension board members what a pension stand to one of the report. They're intended to provide a secure and single port of access for individuals to access all of their pension history in one place, including eventually their state pension. The intention is to support better planning for retirement and help individuals reconnect with any pension pots that they may have lost over time. So, you may have seen recently, advertisements for, Pensions B and other providers now online, or getting ready to provide this service to members of the public. Us as a pension provider, we're required to provide a pension dashboard to our members in due course as well, but not only about their LGPS benefits, but be able to provide them with information or direct them for us to fetch information to be able to report to them. So their pensions benefits held elsewhere. So it's a massive IT project sitting behind this, which ensures that all pension providers are connected and talk to each other and can share and relay information. What does that mean for us as an admin authority then? Broadly speaking, we'll be required to have to plug in to that infrastructure and make available our data and our systems to that whole network, so other people can inquire of us for their members, but likewise we can then as well inquire outside of that network to other pensions providers and bring in information for our members, so that members in our scheme who perhaps have pension pots elsewhere can just ask us, and using our dashboard be able to access all that information. So there's a lot of technical preparedness that has to be undertaken in readiness for the date. And as you can see on one of the reports, originally the deadline was, I think it was 2024, wasn't it, the original deadline? But as you can see, when the pensions minister spoke on the 8th of June, that deadline has been updated to the 31st of October 2026. But it's envisaged that public sector schemes and the LGPS will be well ahead of that deadline, because obviously we've been preparing for it for the last couple of years anyway. So as I say, most of it is you can't really see really. It's in respect of the infrastructure, the IT infrastructure, and we're working with our IT provider Hayward's, who's the default IT software provider in the LGPS. I think they provide software for over 80% of LGPS funds. There are about 89 LGPS funds up and down the country, and I think they provide the software for the majority of them. There's only, I think, one other or maybe two other providers in the marketplace who provide that software. So they're fully on board. They're working with the LGPS technical advisory group to ensure that provision is pensions dashboard and money and pension service compliant. So why do we need this additional resource then, if it's all going on, you know, behind the scenes, it's all IT based? Well, it is envisaged that it would be a live system, basically, so that, you know, you can inquire and ask about, you know, any pension pots you have in real time. You know, it's not about what it was last year or 6 months ago. It's about now, live. You know, what are my pension benefits that I've got available to me? Hence, the importance of updated information from our members, scheme data that we have. And more importantly, from our employers, so that this role that we're asking the additional resource for is to coordinate that, and to coordinate more timely and more regular data updates from our employers, and working and liaising with them to ensure that data flow is accurate and up to date, so that we can provide that real-time information via the dashboard. It's one assistant communications and training officer. As we say, it's the remit is identified there in 4.1, but obviously it'll move and develop as we move from the planning and prepping phase to the business as usual phase. So happy to take any. Oh, and 3.4 really gives you a scale of the traffic and the volume of requests that it can envisage that we'll be undertaking, you know, as a result of pensions dashboards launching.
Yeah. Jeff, did the committee approve the resource request?
They did very much so. They were wholly supportive of it. I think it was in the context of you know, £3 billion scheme. You know, one assistant communications training officer, well below benchmark in terms of resourcing for comparable size schemes. You know, we're you know, very well placed in that regard. We're not top heavy in respect to our resourcing. Still have, you know, I think I reported to you last time, Chairman, that a lot of our resourcing and planning was informed by the size of the office that we had at the time. we couldn't fit any more people in there, but now we've gone remote working, that constraint has been removed. Although the pension section are one of the council's teams that regularly do come into the office for training purposes and mentoring, and there's a rota for them to regularly come into the office.
Yeah, so thank you, Jeff. I'm pleased to hear it, because I think the pensions dashboard is a good idea in principle, at least in reuniting people with long lost pensions. But of course, it's going to be a huge data exercise, and I know Swansea's been doing data cleansing exercises for some time, hasn't it? Dare I say, I'm not confident that other organisations may have been doing the same. Any questions, points on this agenda item? I'm not seeing any, and again, for us, it's an information item. Moving on to item 8, and that's a proposal that we move into private session, that the public be omitted from the rest of the meeting, and you'll see the reasons given there. Does anybody have, firstly, any questions, probably for the legal officer, as to the reasons for moving into private? I'm not seeing any, so could I have a proposal to move into private session, please?
Happy to propose that.
Thank you. And second.
A second, Ian.
Okay, and I'm happy to agree it. So I think that's unanimous, given our attendance today. So accordingly, we'll move into private session. Jeremy, can you do the technical necessities?